Ready?
Garbage.
We'll call the meeting to order for the Willmar City Council for Tuesday, February 20th. Roll call.
Mayor Calvin,
Here.
Councilmember Nelson,
Here.
Christensen,
Here.
Schwantes.
Here.
Alvarado.
Here.
Osmus.
Here.
Maskey.
Here.
Plowman.
Here.
Fagerly.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Are there any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda as it's been presented? Seeing and hearing none, I'll take a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Discussion. All those in
Mayor.
favor? Councilmember Holland.
The cafe and restaurant and soft drinks license. We
That'll
didn't
come
want
to
to
the
add
next
that.
meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Next, we have consent items. Ms. Thompson.
On the consent item agenda this evening, we have for council's approval the city council minutes of February 5th, the Willmar Municipal Utility Board minutes of February 12th, application for exempt permit for the Willmar Sertoma Club, an application for exempt permit for the United Way of West Central Minnesota, application for appointment of Dale Boxrud to the Human Rights Commission, a resolution authorizing final payment for East Taxi Lane Rehabilitation Project, a resolution establishing fees for services, permits, licenses, and rental rates, and for council's acceptance of the Willmar Police Commission minutes of June 28, 2017, the police department statistics for January and the fire department statistics for January, and the accounts payable through February 14, 2018.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the consent items as presented. Discussion. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question on I, on the police department statistics for January. The traffic stop numbers are more than twice what it was last year. Is that number real or was it typed wrong?
That is a correct number, Councilmember Christensen. Part of that is that we're back up to full staff, and last year we were doing some training with some field training officers at that time, so the number was lower.
So 690 traffic stops in 1 month, is that right?
That's correct.
Wow.
The guys are working hard. And yeah.
And long. Okay, that was it. Thank you. I thought maybe it was a mistype.
Remember when we had approved those additional positions, we talked about the proactive policing that wasn't being done? And so I think what we're seeing is some of that proactive policing is being done now. Is that part of the reflection of those numbers?
We're certainly doing our best on that, correct.
Sure. Okay.
Be careful.
Councilmember Osmus.
Can I pull B, the utilities,
Yes, you may.
just for some comments?
Additional discussion. All in favor of the resolution with the exception of B boy, roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Councilmember Osmus.
Well, as luck would have it, I can't find it now, but I just wanted to let the public know about the second turbine that's not turning. I read it in there, but I can't find it right now. But that they're, I just wanted, people ask, why isn't that second tower turning? Or why isn't it working? And that we do have a part that is on back order, what was it, like 14 weeks? That it was going to take. And they'll get that up and running. The other one has been working extra hard and have been generating more than it normally does. But I just wanted the public to know, because a lot of times you get asked, why isn't that turbine moving?
Sure. Mr. Meskey, Councilmember Meskey, you want to add any light in that as the MUC representative?
I can. The windmills were built and designed by a company in Germany that is no longer in business, and securing parts for that is very, very difficult. And so actually they end up fabricating some of the parts as they need to do that. They're looking at perhaps they actually found the person who worked for the company that designed it, who does answer our questions and help in trying to maintain those things, but they're looking to perhaps find a new contract and perhaps create new innards that there are actually parts for. So they're doing the best they can with a model of a windmill that we no longer have a company to buy parts from.
Okay. Councilmember Osmus, would you want to approve those minutes?
Yes. So move to approve.
Second.
Motion been made, seconded to approve the minutes from Willmar Municipal Utilities of February 12th. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Next, we have our first public hearing, creation of a municipal development district number 9. Mr. Peterson, our our Planning Development Director.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council. The purpose of this hearing is to formally create a municipal development district. The city has 8 existing development districts, and those districts have all been created for the sole purpose of allowing the city to participate financially in public purpose projects. This particular development district is being proposed to be coterminous with the tax increment district proposed for the 15th Street Flats project on Southeast 15th Street. The purpose of the municipal development district is to provide a rough framework for projects within that district. It is a requirement of Minnesota statute. We have prepared the municipal development district plan. All portions of that plan comply with statute. And as a means of keeping the 15th Street Flats project moving in the right direction, it's a recommendation of staff that the council adopt the resolution designating Municipal Development District 9. And so you know, there should be a map in your packet, but it's the 3 lots that make up the site of the 15th Street Flats housing project.
Okay. Anybody from the public that wishes to speak to this item? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it to the council. Council, what are your wishes?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution designating Municipal Development District Number 9.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adopt a resolution creating Municipal Development District Number 9. Discussion. Seeing and hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes. Aye. Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Meskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next is open the public hearing for tax increment financing for 15th Street Flats. Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, the final step in the council's process for establishing the tax increment financing district for the 15th Street Flats apartment project is the public hearing. Last June, the council did give preliminary approval to a 15-year tax increment district. The preliminary approval was based on anticipated construction in 2018, and the developer is on schedule for that start. The project received approval for the tax credit funding, and part of the approval for tax credit funding was the preliminary approval of the TIF district by the city. It is now time to finalize the tax increment financing portion of the project, and as a reminder, TIF will be used to partially offset the cost of site preparation, utilities, some stormwater controls, paving, and lighting. The total cost of this project exceeds $9.5 million. The city and the EDC have been working with Commonwealth Development for approximately a year to bring this project to the table, to fruition. And Commonwealth sought the financing through the state of Minnesota using tax credits, and part of the tax credit approval was predicated on the city's participation with tax increment financing. The project plans to use existing infrastructure and is planned for Southeast Willmar on 15th Street Southeast. With the tax credits having been approved, it's necessary to proceed with the approval of the TIF plan that lays out the tax implications for the 3 taxing jurisdictions. By law, the county, the school district, and the county commissioner having jurisdiction for that district have all been notified, and again, that's required by statute. There were no negative responses received. In fact, there were no responses or comments received from any of the other taxing jurisdictions. They've always been good partners in our tax increment financing projects, and they continue to be good partners in development. In this particular project, like all TIF projects, the jurisdictions will be asked to forego any new taxes on the site for a period of time. In this particular case, it's been preliminarily agreed to a 15-year term. The total increment expected to be generated by the project in that 15-year term is approximately $585,000. The alternatives at this point is to approve the use of TIF for the project or to no longer pursue the use of tax increment financing, which in essence kills the project. It's a recommendation of staff that the council adopt a resolution approving the tax increment plan and further directing staff to work with the developer to craft a developer's agreement for execution at a later date.
This is a public hearing. Anybody from the public that wishes to speak? State your name and if you live within the city or outside of the city for the record, please.
Thank you, Mayor Calvin and council members. My name is Erin Anderson. I'm with Commonwealth Development Corporation, and I live outside of the city limits. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. Thank you very much for the time today and for the support that the city has provided to our project so far. I do have a very, very brief presentation to show you. I know that many of you were here for the previous presentation that I gave last year, but just briefly, we're a company that was founded in 2001 with a mission to bring affordable housing to communities. We're based in Wisconsin, our home bases, but we have offices throughout the country, one of them being in St. Paul, which is where I am based. We're a long-term partner. We hold our assets for a minimum of 15 years, and we're really proud of the multiple project history we have with partners and communities. Okay. The site plan is shown here. As Bruce mentioned, we have a mid-rise building that is creating affordable housing with a significant amount of parking provided, 2-to-1 parking for each resident. We also have our stormwater retention on the north side of the site there. It's a little bit hard to see on the screen, but that's a retention pond on the north. It is an elevated building. It's going to provide full accessibility for residents in the community. In fact, many of the units are designed specifically for disabilities. 5 of them are specifically going to be receiving support services through the United Community Action Program for those units. And another 5 units are specifically targeted to families who have been coming out of a situation of homelessness. The other community amenities that we're going to have within the building include a general community room for lounging. We'll have an exercise room. We will have an on-site office for the manager. So we'll have a part-time manager that is able to occupy the building. And we also will offer the support services in a space that is private with a meeting and consultation room for the residents that do need those services. This is our artistic rendering of the building. The exact materials and colors are still subject to change, but it gives the general design intent. As I mentioned, it's a mixed income development consisting of affordable units that range from 30% county median income to 60% county median income. And so what that means when you break down the fact that the majority of the units are for 60% area median income, what we're looking at for a 4-person family would be about $38,000 to $38,000 a year would be the income limit. And as I mentioned, that is actually about 60% of the units are falling under that range. The other 30% of the units, or sorry, that's 70% of the units. The other 30% of the units are at 30% county median income, which is half of that. So for a 4-person family, that would be $15,000 a year. But that's a very small number of the units. But we are trying to really serve a wide range of income and rent targeting. So we have rents ranging from $343 to $913. The $913 would be for a 3-bedroom, 60% unit, for example, and the $343 would be for a 1-bedroom, 30% unit. And our property management staff is much better at explaining this stuff to potential tenants so that it doesn't sound as confusing as what I might have just been describing. Our development timeline, we've met the first 2 thresholds here. We've already submitted the application to the state and were awarded the funds in October. We're planning on starting construction in June with a roughly 12-month construction timeframe to finish in June of 2019. I'm going to skip to the end here. We do have the HRA working with us as property manager. So they're providing input as well into the design and kind of how this property will be operated. We also are working with them on rental assistance for the 5 homeless units that are within the building. And we have the 2 requests on the table here today. And as Bruce mentioned, this is kind of the last step of the approvals we need, which is the tax increment financing approval. And another item on the agenda later on in the agenda is the rezoning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your report. Anybody else from the public that wishes to speak? Seeing and hearing none, I will close the public hearing, bring it to the council. Council, what are your wishes?
I would make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the tax increment plan.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the tax increment financing plan for 15th Street Flats. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Abstain.
7 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstain.
That resolution does pass. Next is a public hearing for an ordinance to rezone land from general business to R5 high-density multifamily residential. Mr. Peterson, I'll open the public hearing.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, the property under consideration for the rezoning request is the 15th Street Flats property on 15th Street Southeast. It consists of a fairly small area. It's just the area where the apartment project is planned for itself. It's currently zoned general business, and with the request to put the housing units there, the Planning Commission spent a lot of time discussing land use in that area and is convinced that the apartment complex will make a very nice transition from the general business uses that exist on Lakeland Drive back into the moderate density residential neighborhoods, which transition already into the single-family neighborhood. So we think it's a very good use of a land use tool to rezone this site, and I would recommend that the council adopt the ordinance, assign it a number, and publish it.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? Seeing and hearing none, I'll bring it to the council table. Council, your wishes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and approved to introduce an ordinance to rezone land from general business to high-density multifamily residential, assign it a number, and publish it. Discussion. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's kind of nice to have a public hearing and no one is here to complain because there's no single-family properties around it. It's all business and apartments, so it's a good location.
Yeah, our planning commission was very convinced that as far as housing goes, this is about as close as you'll get to commercial housing, just because of the scale and the intensity of the housing, and they thought this was a good location for that, right off Lakeland Drive and adjacent to a fair number of existing multifamily units.
And Pizza Ranch will probably
And the new school.
enjoy it, and Giovanni's extra traffic.
Seeing and hearing no other discussion, roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Aye.
Maskey, Plowman,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Christensen,
Abstain.
Schwantes.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstain.
That resolution does pass as well. Next is a public hearing for the 2018 Small Cities Development Program. Ms. Bingston with the Willmar Candido County HRA.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, there's just a few more items that need to be finished prior to submitting the Small Cities Development Program application to DEED later on this week. And the first is to provide some information to the public and then conduct the public hearing, and then the council needs to consider 2 resolutions. In summary, the City of Willmar is applying to DEED for the Small Cities Development Program to administer a home rehab, commercial rehab, and rental rehab program in targeted areas in the community. The application process has entailed submitting the preliminary proposal to DEED in November. DEED informing the city the preliminary proposal was competitive and invited the city to submit a full application. Tonight is the hearing and consideration of resolutions. The application will be submitted later this week, and DEED will announce which cities in rural Minnesota will receive funding in June.
Steve's going to help set your computer up there for you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And just hit your down arrow.
So community need for the project. The city's north side is one of the oldest neighborhoods in the community. Discontinuing the district heat system impacts the downtown businesses in the north side neighborhood. 43 homeowners have submitted waiting list interest forms for the project. And of those, based on their declared information, 31 are eligible for the program, 6 are ineligible, and 6 were inconclusive. 36 businesses also submitted waiting list interest forms for the project, and based on their declared information, 27 buildings are eligible, 7 buildings are ineligible, and 2 buildings, it was not determined whether or not they were eligible. The 2015 Candido County Housing Study determined a need for affordable rental housing in the city, Small Cities Development Program funding. will complete a funding package allowing the preservation of 56 affordable housing units at Hanson Apartments. The total project financing for all activities includes the commercial rehab, completing 13 units. Of that, $253,837 would be from the Small Cities Program. $175,163 is what's called program income, meaning it's money that revolve back into a fund from past Small Cities programs. And then $156,000 would be provided by the HRA, and $26,000 would be from Willmar Municipal Utilities. Sorry for not having that label there. Total for the commercial rehab is $611,000. Under the homeowner rehab, 13 units, $286,000 Small Cities funds, $130,000 from the HRA, $32,000 from UCAP, $97.50 from Willmar MUC, a total of $457,750. Rental rehab, 56 units in 4 buildings, $600,000 from deed. There are 12 sources of financing there to put the package together to acquire and rehab Hanson Apartments. Total is $6,498,646. The rest is administration costs. $38,075 is being asked from Small Cities. The HRA would provide $5,000. For the homeowner admin, $26,403, Small Cities, $8,500, the HRA. And the rental rehab, $98,30, Small Cities, and $3,500 HRA. Combined, everything all together, $7,658,704. The anticipated time frame for the project, we would actually start the project anticipating that it will be funded in June. The only things that can be started would be the environmental review. It just takes a long time to do all that, and we want to hit the ground running if it's funded. So we would do a lot of the preliminary environmental review prior to the funding award announcement. In June, Small Cities funding award is announced. In July, the city would adopt policies regarding program and local income, Section 3 plan, fair housing plan, prohibition of excessive force, displacement minimization, and residential anti-displacement plans, drug-free workplace certification, and then policies and procedures for homeowner rehab, commercial rehab, and rental rehab. Also, the council would have to approve an administration contract with the HRA. We'd have to receive environmental clearance from deed and then begin accepting homeowner and commercial loan applications. One note there is that we would need to use up all of the program income on the commercial side before we could award any projects on the homeowner side. And then from August 2018 to July 2020, complete the homeowner, commercial, and rental rehab projects. And in the middle of all that, we have to have a second public hearing to review the project status. And then we anticipate wrapping everything up in September of 2020. This is the commercial rehab activity and the target area on the map. The target area would be located, bounded by Pacific Avenue on the north, 1st Street on the east, Trott Avenue on the south, 7th Street on the west, and includes properties on both sides of all streets. The property owner must be current on mortgage payments, property taxes, and property insurance to be eligible. The building must be located in the business target area, and a minimum of 20% of the total rehab costs have to be provided by the property owner. The Small Cities program terms of assistance would be up to 60% of the rehab expenses to a maximum of $40,000. The deferred loan must be repaid if the owner sells or transfers the property within 7 years. The loan is forgiven if that doesn't happen. Eligible improvements, basically life safety, energy, deferred maintenance improvements such as roof replacement, tuck pointing, electrical plumbing upgrades, handicap accessibility, asbestos removal, or code violations. Other available funding that will be available to commercial borrowers, Willmar Municipal Utilities will provide $2,000 loans, 9% 5 years when converting to electric, and the Candioi County HRA will provide loans up to $12,000 at 1% for 10 years. Next is showing examples of how all the funding together can work for a commercial borrower. So the first is showing on a $60,000 project, SCDP is giving a $36,000 loan, HRA loan of $12,000, and the 20% owner contribution of $12,000. On the next example, the small cities loan at 60% would be $18,000, an MUC loan at $2,000, and the owner would be contributing $10,000 for the $30,000 project. On the home rehab side, the target area is bounded by Park Avenue on the north, Oak Lane to 7th Street Northwest on the east, Campbell Avenue on the south, and 17th Street Northwest on the west, and includes homes on both sides of all streets. Following is showing the income eligibility criteria for each level. If a household is in level 1, that is the lowest income level tier, and if the project were $25,000 total, the entire amount would be paid by the small cities loan. Otherwise, it can't exceed 100% of the project cost. Level 2 would get $90,000, not to exceed $25,000, and level 3 would receive 70% of project costs, not to exceed $25,000. As long as a homeowner lives there for 10 years, the loan is forgiven. If they sell or move, it has to be repaid. Same types of improvements are eligible: handicap accessibility, plumbing, electrical, structural, roofing, energy improvements, heating, asbestos, and lead abatement. Other available funding: Willmar Municipal Utilities, $750, loans, 9%, 5 years when the homeowner is converting to electric heat. United Community Action Partnership will provide up to $8,000 per household in weatherization funds, not to exceed $32,000 total for the program. And the Candioi County HRA will loan $10,000, 1% over 10 years. And then these are more examples of how it works for the homeowners. So on a $26,000 project, and if you were in level 1, you could get $25,000 from the Small Cities program, $700 from UCAP, and $300 would be the owner contribution. And this is just an example. On a $26,000 project for a level 2 homeowner, $23,400 for a small cities loan, $750 for an MUC loan, other owner contribution of $1,850, and on a $26,000 project for a level 3 homeowner, $18,200 for a small cities loan, $5,300 from the HRA, and $2,500 from the owner. Under the rental rehab program, this provides Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership with a $600,000 0% deferred forgivable loan. There's one change in this from the preliminary application. Under the preliminary application, it was proposed to be a 30-year loan. Deed has provided input to the HRA, wanting it to be a 5-year loan so that it does not have to be included with deed reporting to HUD for the next 30 years. The combined project for Hanson Apartments is $6,498,646. It's for rehabbing 56 units, and there is the gross rent restrictions, and income limits. The city's most recent project for small cities was in 2012, is a $1,048,000 project. It helped 27 homeowners in Willmar and Raymond, 2 rental projects above commercial buildings, 9 businesses, Highland Apartments, and administration. That is it, other than public hearing has been advertise, and I did receive one comment from the public, and that was just clarification on the $600,000 loan to Hanson Apartments, and the answer was that's not doing all the rehab. There's other funding that will also be combined with that.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it to the council. Council, what are your wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve the area designation. I think is the first one we need to do. Is that correct? Small cities.
I think the first one is a resolution for 2018 Small Cities Development Program Slum and Blighted Area Designation, correct?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve a resolution for the application for a 2018 Small Cities Development Program Slum and Blighted Area Designation. Discussion. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I lost it in the fine print. I noticed that there's a clawback provision regarding commercial properties in terms of a 7-year hold. And if they sell before 7 years, then the loan is not forgiven. Does that exist for homeowners? And if so, what is the time frame?
It does exist for homeowners, and it's 10 years for the homeowners.
Okay, and then second question, if I may. For other programs where this has been implemented in other areas, are there any kind of stats or figures as to maybe the numbers retained? In other words, like who defaults on that? What kind of percentage default do you see that aren't able to have that debt absolved and they have to take that on themselves?
I can tell you it does happen occasionally. It's not a majority. I don't know the percentage.
Okay, but it's not a large.
It's not large. It's, you know, if they were elderly and maybe they passed away and the estate had to sell the property, something like that. Or if they just ended up selling and moving.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions from council? Councilmember Meske.
I just have a question about the application process. You mentioned some of them, 6 homes and 2 businesses, inconclusive. How did that process work, and were those people notified of why their application was not approved?
It's not technically an application at this point.
Okay.
It was just a 1-page survey if they were interested in being on, where they had to identify the address of their business or their home. So in the commercial instance, if the building location was not in the target area, that's what's throwing it out. Or if they didn't say what the address was, or if we couldn't tell what it was. On the homeowner side, if they were saying what their gross annual income was and it's outside of the range for their household size, then, you know, or if they're not saying what their income is, then we can't tell if they're eligible or not.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we will have roll call for the designation for the 2018 Small Cities Development Program Slum and Blighted Area Designation. Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next is a resolution in support of a Small Cities Development Program project.
I'll enter that.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to introduce a resolution in support of the Small Cities Development Program project. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Meske.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes as well. Jill, thank you. Thank you for the good work, and it was encouraging to hear that 30-year loan was decreased down to 5 years. So thank you for your work on making that happen. So
Thank you, everyone.
That's very good. So appreciate that. I know that will help us with our reporting requirements. Next is the Willmar City Council Open Forum. Again, you have 3 minutes to address the council. We will go ahead and start with that. And again, hopefully you've read the agreements to the Willmar City Council Open Forum. And I'm not sure, how are we doing the timing this time? Because we're in a new building.
Sorry, forgot about that. I do have a
Stopwatch.
cell phone.
Every cell phone has a stopwatch, so we'll use that tonight.
I'd prefer that staff do that and not have me to be the one that has to do that, so. And then at the conclusion of the time, if you could just say time or something like that, and then I will just thank the presenter for their time.
When it gets down to 1 minute, I'll give 1 minute and then 30 seconds, and then I'll say stop.
Thank you. First, we have Darlene Schroeder. Please state your name and whether you reside within the city of Willmar or not.
Darlene Schrader, I live outside the city limits. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the mayor and the council for appropriating an additional $31,000 in 2018 that will allow us to have a full-time coordinator at the community center. Since the retirement of the former director 4 years ago, there's been $40,000 left in surplus. I think that $70,000 a year will really position the city to do its role under Article 6 of the proposed agreement, which is to make sure that they directly employ staff necessary for the programs. Over the past 3 years when I've been on the board, I would say that volunteers have shouldered a whole lot of things. As I thought about the importance of this position, what came to mind is my father filling out his tax returns. And at my mother's occupation, he put in household executive. That's before they're required to use the code. And I think that's an apt term. What he recognized is that role, that glue, and we use that term quite a bit on the board, talking about the importance of the glue, somebody that makes sure everything's running well, that the center is hospitable and welcoming, that issues are addressed promptly, and basically that we take a look at, this is an asset of the city, that it is well used. Our operating budget, absent a coordinator, is $70,000 a year. We need to make good use of that asset. So when I think about, this is an opportunity for the city to directly employ this person in the coming year, and to really hopefully work with the community center board as well as the staff to really position us to move forward. So I want to thank you again for your foresight and your willingness to really appropriate the funds, and hope to be working with you as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Linda Ketcher. Please state your name and if you reside within the city or outside of the city.
Yes, hi, I'm Linda Ketcher, and I reside outside of the city of Willmar. However, we do own property, my husband and I, within Willmar. So I'm still interested as to what goes on in the city. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, councilors and mayor. My comments are in regard to the February 9th West Central Tribune, which I will call the paper, editorial titled "City Memo Leaker Endangers Council Chambers Safety." The editorial describes the contents of an email originating from Police Chief Felt to the council, mayor, and others regarding logistics and security concerns of the then council meeting facility, the Willmar Municipal Utility Chamber. It labels an unknown individual as a leaker and names another individual as publicizing this leaked information on social media. I wonder if the paper had access to the actual memo itself or was referring to the leaked information and making its judgments. I could not determine that from the editorial. As a member of the public who attends council meetings periodically, it seems as though matters of safety and security pertain every bit as much to the public as to elected officials and others who attend council meetings. And I thought I might want to know about these issues when I attend a meeting. So in that light, I'm requesting that the city provide to me, pursuant to the Data Practices Act, any and all memos or emails sent by Police Chief Jim Felt on January 9th, 2018, to the council that contains subject matter regarding safety and security, no matter how they're titled or stamped or addressed, with or without confidential, secure, or otherwise. And I thank you very much for this opportunity to make this request. I do have a formal request form if that's what you would need to do this. And unless there's any other questions, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, if you could give the formal form to our city clerk. Thank you for your comments. Next, Bob Enos. Please state your name and if you reside within the city or outside of the city.
My name's Bob Enos. I live in the city. On February 9th, the West Central Tribune publisher Steve Ammerman and editor Kelly Bolden published an editorial casting aspersions on both my reputation and the public's right to open records. I posted on social media an email that Willmar Police Chief Jim Felt wrote to our elected officials. The paper described my behavior as irresponsible and dangerous. The Tribune was very clever here. They hoped that by publishing this smear as an opinion instead of a news item, that they could avoid a lawsuit for defamation of character. I believe Chief Felt is guilty of nothing more than being used badly in this affair. Nowhere in the memo did the chief claim confidentiality, nor did he say that the information was restricted under state law or subject to disclosure protection. The memo identified no security breaches, no security threats, and no security incidents. What Chief Felt's memo actually questioned was the building's compliance with the state building code, the fire code, and the handicap access code. And while it's embarrassing that a city building might not comply with safety codes, it's hardly top secret stuff. The memo had absolutely no special shield under the Data Practices Act. I have 3 questions and 3 answers to the Tribune's assault on us. Number 1, why would Ammerman and Bolden make accusations that are so easily disproven? Because they can. Actual news stories are fact-checked. Editorial opinions are just that, they're opinions. What are the motivations for this smear? The Tribune doesn't like me. My letters to the editor have been permanently banned since 2015. Mayor Calvin and a majority on the council who don't handle dissent very well, they don't like me either. So I'd say that's a recipe, a good recipe for willing
1 minute.
collaborators. Who told the Tribune this was confidential security information? The security angle was nowhere in the memo. Our ACE reporters certainly couldn't come up with this on their own. They had help. A free media is supposed to be the people's watchdog against government tyranny. In Willmar, the people's watchdog has become the tyrant's lapdog. And why is that? Because that's what happens when a paper's most important customer becomes the government. And Mayor Calvin, you called the opportunity to
30
speak
seconds.
at an open forum a privilege, and that's wrong. It's a right. It's the people's right to petition their government, a right every bit as sacred as the right to vote. That was a poor choice of words, sir.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have a consideration of a partnership agreement with Willmar Public Schools. Mr. Holland. I didn't see a towel, though. I didn't see the towel.
You know, usually I was on my back, so I could see the clock very well. Give me a second here and I'll pull up my slides. So, Mayor and Council, a couple of weeks ago, we had a discussion about the Community Education and Recreation Agreement. This is a 17-year-old agreement that we've had. And one of the first things I want to point out is this is between the school district and the city. It's not between the Community Education and Rec Committee. It's between the city and the school district. You know, some of the key provisions of this document are basically changing the title of the Joint Powers Board to the CE&R Advisory Committee, which provides for a better definition and authority of the committee. The document also has been altered to establish the goals and the authority of the committee. And Article 4 clarifies the powers of the committee and clarifies the operations of the CER will be under the guidance of the school superintendent and the city administrator. And that's what has been established for the last 17 years. It's the school superintendent and the city administrator that administer those programs that have a commonality or a sharing effect between the two different entities. The facilities of the school, the high school gym, and the swimming pool remain the same. One city-owned, one school district. Also in Article 5, under the responsibilities, it talks about the policy for the park and the facilities planned usage, and the responsibilities, again, are amended and clarified. Also, this is significant, is that we've been doing a 3-year contract for the last decade and a half. This is for 18 months, and this was a recommendation by the school district. So the school district board passed this in December, and we have discussed this, I don't know, a couple of times over the last 6 months. Well, I will tell you that since my arrival here, we started in June working on this contract. We've had their attorney review this contract. We've had our city attorney review this contract. And so tonight, I'm recommending the approval that the mayor and I can agree to sign this contract. I know that we haven't had a great deal of discussion in the last week, but hopefully you had a chance to review both documents and you either agree or disagree with it. I will tell you that it is a priority for the school in that we need to be hiring someone here and starting that process in about the next 60 days for the replacement of Steve Bresendine. So that's one of the reasons that I know that the school superintendent has expressed to me, and I think it was published in the paper also, so it's public knowledge that they would like to get this approved one way or another. So tonight, I'm going to recommend approval.
Okay. Council, what do you wish to do?
I'll make that motion
Second?
for 18 months. Is that correct, Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Motion been made and seconded to consider the partnership agreement with Willmar Public Schools and the city for an additional 18 months. Discussion. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier, Darlene Schrader had mentioned that the budget out there is $70,000, and that will be a city person. That won't be a city person, correct? It's from Community Ed and Rec, or is it from the city?
It'd be
Steve.
a school employee.
That has not been determined at this time. The money's inside the budget as we look to fill the staffing gaps that exist currently. That'll be done upon decisions about the Community Ed and Rec agreement.
So this $70,000 that is or will be available, is that in our fund, or is it in the?
Money in the community center budget to hire a staff person for that facility, yes.
Okay, now the last one, Leanne, was she a city employee?
City employee, yes.
Okay, she would have been the last one, so we don't know then if that person will be paid by the city or by Community Ed and Rec.
Right, nothing's been decided at this point. It'd probably be my recommendation that the person would be a city employee, but I don't know that yet, depending on what the position that you hire becomes.
If that's the case, then, and you said the money's in community ed and rec, does that money come back to us to pay that person?
Money is in the community center budget for the city.
Oh, okay, I see. Thank you, Steve.
Councilmember Osmus, followed by Meskey, followed by Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the city council representative on the community center, we've had a lot of discussion about this position and about some representation out at the community center. So I would just like to speak in favor of either two things. Either that person is a city employee, and I know we'd have to talk about that kind of a hiring process, but just for clarification, in the mayor's budget for this next year, that's where the increase came in for the community center, was to have a salary for a full-time person there. The last person was 4 years ago. That was Leanne Freeman. A lot of people were familiar with her. Since then, the school with Community Ed and Rec has kind of split up what her responsibilities were before between 3 different people with facilities and marketing and programming. And my personal opinion is that hasn't been very effective for the needs of the community center. And whether that person is a city employee or whether that person is a school employee, I feel very strongly that that person is housed out at the community center. Now, that doesn't mean they have to spend 8 hours a day there, but their office is there. So they have some ownership with that building. And otherwise, if they don't have anything accessible to them in their office, there isn't anything else for them to do out there. And they're just kind of standing around and possibly feeling awkward. Well, we want them to be able to have be able to do their responsibilities and function with their job out there, and then have some ownership with it and have an idea of what is going on out there and who's opening the doors, who's closing the doors, what needs to get fixed, who's coming and going, and what the needs are for that building. That some of those things have fallen through the cracks, and that truly needs to be addressed. Now, I know some of the concern is if it was a school employee, that person would be isolated from the rest of the staff or the people that work for the school. I compare it to school resource officers with the police department. They're in their individual school buildings. And yes, they're not part of the police department that like a whole shift gets together. But as the juvenile unit, they have weekly meetings where they get together and talk about what's going on at the different buildings. And I would hope that that would be the same thing with this position. And I would think that Rob Baumgartner out at the Civic Center is in that same position. He's not at city offices, he's not, but he keeps in contact with the city staff for what the needs are out at the Civic Center. So I just feel very strongly that, especially with the conversation about, and I've said it before, that we have to do something with the community center, whether that's a new building there, a new building someplace else, but until somebody has ownership and buy-in and totally feels that building is their responsibility, I don't feel there's a voice to advocate for that building.
I totally agree.
Thank you.
Councilmember Meskey.
I said this last meeting, I think this policy or this new agreement does a great job of delineating authority, and I appreciate that part. The part that I'm a little concerned about, and if we were going to do this 18 months, I can live with that, but at some point, I want to see sort of the financial implications of this for the city and the school district, and it would be nice to see kind of where dollars went that were part of the joint powers the previous couple of years and where they go after we enter into this. Because before we were very careful to make sure that it was kind of an equitable situation without having all those responsibilities delineated and things being pulled back into different budgets and so on. It's unclear to me exactly what that picture is going to look like. And we want to make sure it's an equitable kind of relationship like it was before.
Right. Agree.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on the hiring of the new director, do we have any say? Are you in on the interviewing, or is the mayor, or who?
The two people, is the school superintendent and myself, have the authority to hire that person according to the agreement. Now, that's not to say that it would just be us on the hiring committee, but Dr. Holman and myself, we've talked about that we will form a committee and then do the interviews. But the ultimate decision, according to the document, resides with the school superintendent and the city administrator.
Okay, thank you.
And traditionally, the mayor has not sat on that hiring piece, so I would not propose that the mayor would sit on that particular hiring piece.
Brisendine's been here a long time, so there was no
Longer
need
than
for
I've been
that.
here.
I know.
Yeah. Councilmember Nelson, followed by Plowman.
Thank you, Mayor Calvin. I serve as the liaison to the Community Ed and Rec Advisory Board at this point in time, and they are truly functioned in an advisory capacity, even though we're listed as a joint powers. I understand the need to change the document because we were not functioning as a joint powers board. But I do have some questions and concerns about things that we haven't done as we've looked at this agreement. 2.1 in this document talks about that the purpose of this agreement is to define the areas of programming shared between the school district and the city, as well as to define the school and city programming and services that are unique. And I know that we've talked about this. I believe Dr. Holm made the statement in the newspaper too, that he did not see that the school was interested in park development, nor did he think that the city should be interested in
Early childhood.
Thank you, early childhood. I have that document here, I just need to find it. And so I've asked the questions, and I don't have answers for that. And I understand that you're asking us to renew this because we don't have time to do something else, and that we will investigate this in the next 18 months. I'm just concerned about our ability to do that. We have an opportunity to hire a new director. However, underneath here, it doesn't have any specify any qualifications other than the candidate has to be certified to administer community education programs. It doesn't talk about recreation. It doesn't talk about that. I'm assuming from the comments that we are going to take park development back, that we will find a home for that. I'm assuming that we will take back the building developments with that. My concern is what's left in the agreement, and can we afford to stay in the agreement as it is? It also indicates in here that the goal is to manage the programs listed in paragraph 5.1, which basically lists scheduling for necessary facilities, service, and employees to provide community education enrichment. Now, in the conversation about whose employees are whose, 5.3 points out that the city is responsible for necessary facilities, services, and employees to provide basically all of the programming that's listed there, and that the city will reimburse the school district on a monthly basis for costs for providing services with that. However, 5.4 talks about the school district's responsibility, but it doesn't have that same clause at the end that the school district will reimburse the city for anything that might go back and forth, as we have with aquatics and some of the other things. And so I have a concern about where we're at, what we're doing. I feel badly. We've had a year. The school said, take a year, figure this out. They've done their due diligence. I feel like we haven't quite finished yet. I understand we're at the end and we need to do something here, but I don't know how we're going to make the changes to make the programming better from what we've had. We've listened to the comments made about the community center, but some of those same things can be carried off across other areas with that. And so education and recreation in this community is very important, but it's our job to make sure we're doing it in the best way. And just staying in this agreement as a status quo and even answering the comment that we don't know who we're going to hire and whether there'll be a city employee tells me that we've put the document together, but we haven't done the homework with how we're going to do that. And so if we approve this tonight, I certainly hope that we will take some steps to involve the community. The advisory board I'm not sure what will stay in the advisory board. That red line document alludes that there will be separate advisory for early childhood. We in the charter have a requirement to have a park board, and we haven't fulfilled that obligation. So I have lots of questions with this. I don't think we've answered those questions, but I think we're at a point in time where we backed ourselves in a corner here, and I understand your request for that. But it is frustrating that we haven't taken the time to answer some of these. And if we're going to hire a new person and say, well, we'll see how the next 18 months go, that isn't very confident that we're doing the best thing for our community or the best thing for education and recreation.
Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll echo some of Audrey's concerns, their thoughts that I had too, so I won't reverberate those. But I do think in terms of agreements, I think there's more good here than what there is bad, and I think it heads down the road of addressing the things that need to be addressed, and I think that it's probably a good move going 18 months as opposed to 3 years, because that allows us some transition time and then also some time to reflect, as opposed to kicking the can, 3 years down the road. Legal question, is there any legal delineation in context between Joint Powers Board and Advisory Committee? What's the legal differential there?
Mayor, Councilmember Plowman, members of the council, the distinction is a Joint Powers Board would traditionally be set up to be a separate legal entity. This would be an organization that one way or another is funded separately, that carries out programs in its own name, that would have its own legal responsibility. If there were a claim to arise out of a service provided, it would be probably made against the Joint Powers Board itself, as opposed to an advisory committee where it's a means for the school district and the city to coordinate in their own service provision. So a program would be provided in the name of the city, or it would be provided in the name of a school district or at either of their facilities. It would not be provided through a distinct entity.
Okay, and so for, as the legal rep for our city, you're comfortable in this trend, in the transformation, transfer from a Joint Powers Board, that delineation to the advisory committee?
I am. My comment would be, I think this agreement is an improvement on the previous agreement. And honestly, though the previous agreement sort of purported to create a Joint Powers Board, it never really delivered the punch and made that effective. So I think that legally, you have already been operating as though you had created an advisory committee. So this clarifies that, and that piece, I think, is a big improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Holland, to what Councilperson Nelson said, the park board is supposed to be the people that are appointed from the city, those 6. If they needed to have a park meeting, they were supposed to meet like a half hour before the community ed. Because John Sullivan chewed our butt over it because he said it was in the charter, and this, I don't remember when it, 5-6 years ago, but that's supposed to be our park board. So we do have a park board, they just don't meet.
I see.
So
Okay.
if we need to make some park plans, if we need to bring our engineer in or the community ed director, then they're brought in. And those people on the park, or on the community ed from the Willmar side is supposed to be our park board.
They encompass that. Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Thank you for working with Dr. Holmes and pulling this together. I'm hoping that you're getting good notes so that you can follow up on some of the things that Audrey has brought up and some of the other council members. My area that I want massaged is Article 9 regarding dispute resolution. I think there should be some timelines on that. I don't think it should be open. I think we should, if there's going to be a dispute, we should get to the end of it, not milk it, finish it off. 30 days to select or to eliminate the different, what's to say, First attempt to resolve, yes. And then in the event parties are unable to agree on a mediator will be selected through alternative striking. Let's set up a timeline. Let's have it definite, defined. I don't think that should be a big deal. I'd like to see that. I'd also like to see language saying that each party will be responsible for their own expenses. And if we have to hire a mediator, then we'll split the cost of the mediator. And I think that should be spelled out. And, but I don't believe it's something that should stop this from moving forward. And I'm hoping in that 18 months, we're massaging this to a point so when we get to renew it in 18 months, at the end of 18 months, that these concerns have been addressed.
I agree.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. I just want to know if you can explain why, or is there an opportunity to add that sentence on the school responsibility for the exchanging of dollars? Do you know why it was only added onto the city side of the responsibility and not onto the school side? And is there any way that we can add qualifications for recreation into the hiring of the director?
If you look at 2.1, and if I'm going from memory, but it references a paragraph above.
Nope, I don't see that.
If you go to that paragraph above, it talks about the recreational requirements of that position.
Can you show me where that is? That's in 5, where I'm referencing is 5.3.
My computer died. I think the short story is that at this point, if we make any changes to this document, that means that it's going to have to go back to the school board for their approval for a change. And so my understanding is that is not their desire for that.
So we're basically stuck with this because we didn't act fast enough, is what you're telling me. And so you're not concerned about the
I'm requesting that
school.
you sign it as is tonight. Yes.
So you're not concerned about the school responsibility to reimburse us?
No, I'm not.
Or can we call the question here?
Is there a second to the motion to call the question?
Second.
Motion been made. All in favor of calling the question signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
I had 5-2 is what I had. I didn't hear one voice. Roll call.
Councilmember Plowman,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Nelson,
No.
Christensen,
Aye.
Schwantes. Aye. Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Maskey.
No.
The motion passes. All in favor of the motion as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
That motion passes. Next is consideration of a resolution to accept a donation from Willmar Area Community Foundation for Robbins Island Destination Playground. Mr. Wilkins.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, over the past few months, our office has had the privilege of working with the Willmar Area Community Foundation as well as the Friends for Robbins Island. Before you tonight is a 8th and final recommendation of a donation of $232.53. This amount was an amount that was reconciled after conversations with the Willmar Area Community Foundation. By statute, the city has to accept all cash donations by a resolution, which you have before you tonight. The Willmar Area Community Foundation and the Friends of Robbins Island will be coming to you at a future meeting to give you a final report. There were 3 facets to the whole project. There was the cash contributions, which you have spelled out before you in the committee action form. There was in-kind contributions, which you've acted on from contractors, both in material and labor. And then there was volunteer time putting the project together. The total will end up slightly under $2 million, but they'll give you that in their final report at a future meeting. So our recommendation is to accept this donation by resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the final donation in the amount of $232.53 from the Willmar Area Community Foundation for Robbins Island Destination Playground in the Robbins Island, from the Robbins Island Fund. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. And again, we'll look forward to that full report when they bring it to us. Next, we have the city administrator's comments. Mr. Holland.
Mayor and council, a couple things tonight. Very good news on both of them. The first item is that, as you know, we've been advertising for the HR director position for over a month. And last week, myself, Chief Felt, and Councilmember Schwantes interviewed 5 individuals last Friday, all qualified, very obviously from their resumes, and all of them did very well on the interview process. At the end of that process, we came to the decision to make an offer to one person. I have made an offer to that person, and they have accepted it. I talked to the mayor and said that, this is the HR director and would like to bring it before the council for their approval. This person's name is Samantha Beckman. I have conducted references, checks on her jobs that she has held and those position titles that she has held, and those have all been checked out. The offer is conditioned upon her passing a background check, and that has not been completed, but I would like to have a motion to approve the hiring of Samantha Beckman with the condition that she passes the background check.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to submit an offer to Samantha Beckman pending successful background check. Discussion.
I would just like to echo the items that Administrator Holland said. We had really great candidates. I think that the city will be pleased with our potentially new employee. And I would like to say thank you to those that interviewed for the position because they did do a very nice job. It's wonderful to have 5 good candidates to be able to choose from. So it was a good day.
Thank you. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any relation to Aaron Beckman?
That's
Beckman.
It's Beckman. I
This
didn't
is
understand.
Beckman.
Okay, I thought it was Beckman. Okay,
No, I don't believe so.
different spelling.
That wasn't a question we were
Right.
asked.
Okay. Just Councilmember Fagerly.
Mr. Mayor. So is she from around here, or is she moving here?
She lives in Willmar.
lives here.
She's a resident.
Okay.
Okay. One question that I asked Mr. Holland is the pay within the framework that the council had adopted, and he assured me that it is within the framework of the adopted pay plan. So, so all of that is met, and I think this is very exciting news. Ike and I sat down about a month and a half ago, and I said, you need to build your team with a team that will work the way that you work. And I think you've seen it tonight with Gary Manzer and, his very professional report. We want to be an employer of choice. We want to be an employer of excellence. And I'm very confident that the team has selected a very qualified candidate. So, additional discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Mr. Holland, congratulations.
Thank you, and I will bring that person in March for an introduction before the council, of course.
Thank you.
I'm still working out on when that start date will be for that person. The second item is something, and I apologize, but it did come in late. It was something I couldn't control, but we're building a new Quick Trip downtown, and there's the old, I believe it's Mills Automotive building that will be demolished. And so the offer has been made to our fire department to use that for some training events before it's demolished. But they would like to have that done before the next council meeting, so that's why I apologize. I don't have a car for approval. But basically, it's a liability agreement, and I've had our city attorney review it and amend it to protect the city and the fire department in case of injury or accident. But what I'm requesting tonight is for your approval for myself and the mayor to sign that agreement with Quick Trip Incorporated so that we can use that facility here in the next 10 days.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve a liability agreement between Quick Trip and the city of Willmar for use for, can we just make that emergency services in case the police department wants to get in there? Or don't you have a need to go in there?
I don't know if we get anything scheduled within 10 days for us, so just the fire department would be fine.
Just leave it the way it is then? Okay. Discussion. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Mr. Holland.
That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Under mayor's comments and announcements, this last 2 weeks, there has been so much positive stuff happening within the city of Willmar. It is just out of this world. Change X was a presentation that was put on down at the Goodness Coffee Shop in downtown. They brought in people to talk about Change X and how we can have little mini pods happening throughout our community. And the goal is to have 15 new things to do in Willmar in a small group of people within the next 6 months. And there will be funding to make this happen. There will be resources to make this happen through ChangeX. And also part of this is through the Blue Cross Blue Shield, monies that are coming into the city of Willmar. And so if you're not familiar with ChangeX, changex.org, go on the website, take a look at it. There are really exciting things that can happen with that. One of the things is a community meal, and just invite people into your home and have a meal. And so I've been working with people from ChangeX, and I'm going to do that. Just invite a group of 6 other couples to our home, 6 other people to our home, and just have a conversation about our community. The mayor of St. Cloud currently does that, and he just gets tremendous response. And so I just ask you to just grab an idea, run with it, and move it forward. There's really great energy happening within our community. And, you know, I talked a little bit earlier during the work session about the stuff that's happening with Robbins Island. We've got exciting things happening there. We have people that want to invest in our community. They want to make our community better. And what we're going to see happening at Robbins Island, you're going to see a very good plan that's going to come out of that. And we have people that want to invest and make Willmar a better place. And so that's very exciting as well. The other thing is something that's I've been tossing and turning with for about 6 months. And when we started talking about a new city hall, one of the comments that came up was that maybe we should look at municipal utilities because they're looking at a new facility too. We're looking at a new facility and we can work on it. And I guess if I've tossed and turned on this over the last 6 months, I need to bring it back to you guys. And I would really like us to instruct our city administrator to contact John Herron over at Utilities and see if there's a way that we can bring that team back together. Maybe some people from the city, some people from municipal utilities, and see if we can do that joint building. I kind of brushed it off. That's my fault. I shouldn't have done that. I kind of callously said, no, we can't do that. And it's really been weighing on my heart that I've said, well, why didn't I think, let's look at it? So, Mr. Holland, if the council is okay with that, we can go ahead and have that conversation. Is anybody opposed to that? I mean, the conversation is always good in my opinion, but do you guys agree with that or not? I mean, I'm the one that cut it off. I mean, you guys kind of wanted to talk about it, but everybody okay with that? Okay. Can you make that contact, Mr. Holland?
Yes, I can.
Okay, and with that, I have nothing else. Starting with Councilmember Meskey.
Pass.
Because I started with Councilmember Osmus last time, remember?
Pass, you did such a good job, I couldn't add to it.
Councilmember Plowman.
No, I'll pass this evening, thank you.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr.
Ooh,
Mayor.
he's got a typed up list.
I got the mission statement for the city, the municipal utilities mission statement, and the welcoming resolution. So it's going to be in front of me every meeting, so.
Excellent.
And then,
And we are going to try to get that done. We're still working on that.
okay.
We moved out here and, you know, that is one of our goals is to have that.
okay, we went to the Barn Theater
Oh, yeah.
on Saturday. Why Do Fools Fall in Love? There's 1 week left. Excellent show. It's my favorite this year.
Perfect.
It's the first time this year. It's very good, though.
I've heard really positive comments about it as well. So, Councilmember Nelson.
I too attended Change X the night that the mayor was talking about, and I would challenge you to go out and look at their information. I do think there is something that it would be easy for us to do, and maybe even a challenge for this council to work together to do an event for this city. I know one of them that they're talking about is it's a worldwide date that is chosen to do a community gathering. And it doesn't have to be difficult, and it doesn't have to be complex. And so I would just challenge you to go out and take a look at that and see if we can't come together to do some positive things for the community.
Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jill Bankston earlier presented this small cities development program to the city, and I don't know if the rest of the council is aware, but they've been doing these since I've been on the council, and it has updated the housing in Willmar, the older housing. They've had many, many neighborhood programs like this, and they've put millions and millions of dollars in to make our housing stock better. I don't know if you realize that, but this is what this is all about. And I know hers is geared more toward the heating assistance because we're going to be shutting off the coal plant over there. But on another note, the cameras or the videotaping of our council, are we going to address that sometime? I talked to Rudy this morning, and if we're going to be out here, it is not live streamed.
Right.
And if we're going to do that, he told me that the equipment is about $14,000, and they can set it up anywhere where there's an internet access. I mean, it could be here, it could be at the new school. We could move around if we wanted to, but I think it's important that the citizens are able to view this live. I had several phone calls today from people saying, we're going to be able to view this, and unfortunately, no. It'll be put on, I'm not sure when, but maybe the same times later this week. I believe it was recorded tonight. Am I wrong?
It is recorded, that's correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But I think it's important that they get live streaming as soon as we can, and so we need to either talk about spending that money on that, or what are we going to do? I'm not sure how long it takes to get that, but it's more of the openness for us to the public, our constituents, and can somebody answer when we're going to talk about this, if we're going to do it, or are we going to be here for the duration until something happens at City Hall, or what?
I don't think we know those answers yet, but Mr. Holland, can we get that in the next work session to get it talked about at the next work session?
I will definitely add that, and we are, just so you know, Council and Mayor, we are working on that and the cost and the timeline on it. And I've already got some rough estimates, but I don't want to release that right now. But there will be some cost involved, and it's going to take a little bit of time. It's not just as simple as putting it on the internet now that we're putting it on the cable access. So, but we'll put that, Mayor, on the next work session.
Is that okay, Councilmember Christensen?
It's going to have to be. Sure, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Schwantes?
Thank you, I'll pass.
Councilmember Alvarado?
Yes, I was just going to comment about a letter that you received from Jenny O and the contribution that the Jenny O Turkey Stores is making towards the 15th Street Flats addition with a $3,000 contribution towards the construction of the playground. I guess getting a taste of the destination playground has got them excited about doing playgrounds, so I'm pretty excited about that. The Olympics are going to be wrapping up, and it's an exciting time because when the participants come into the stadium, they're coming in as one group. They're not separated by nations. They're all walking in together. They've made new friends. They've learned new traditions. They've seen new cultures, and they're all better for it. I wish I could experience that. I wish I could be an Olympian.
Not happening for now.
Not happening. But the excitement for those young and those participants, let's say, is really exciting, and I'm very, very excited about that, and it touches me here. And I think we have to salute one of our own. Kathy Schwantes received the Milo Award from the Chamber of Commerce. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that? And
Actually,
congratulations.
Thank you. That's very kind of you, Fernando. Councilmember Alvarado. It'll be March 1st, and there are, it's a nice it's a wonderful recognition, and I'm very humbled by it, and so thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I like the opportunity to meet the new city employees when they get hired, and to have them come and talk to, meet the council, and the council to see their face. Sometimes I think it's just been in the minutes that the person was hired, and you just kind of, you heard a name, but you never really got to see the person. And I think it's good for them to see that we're connected with what happens and who gets hired, and the good job that they're doing for this city. So that was nice to meet those new guys tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Nelson?
I was just going to comment that there's still an opportunity to purchase tickets to attend the Chamber Volunteer Appreciation, where Kathy, Councilmember Schwantes, will receive her award. And so just call the Chamber to register to do that. So congratulations.
Thank you.
With that, with no other business to come before the council, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion been made and seconded, we're adjourned.
I didn't expect that.
You're well.
Didn't know what to say.